journalist Kim Wall. And Britain's Prince Harry's criticised photographers he says took pictures of his mother dying in a car in Paris 20 years ago.
It's 9:01.
Community Conversations is brought to you by Arkansas Early Learning, offering no-cost childcare in Jonesboro and Northeast Arkansas. Applications at arearlylearning.org.
Arkansas Early Learning is a nonprofit organization.
KLEK LP Jonesboro, the voice of Arkansas Minority Advocacy Council. It's now time for Community Conversations, a program focusing on the people working to make the Jonesboro community a better place, while offering viewpoints from all sides of the issues. The views expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of KLEK 102.5 FM, the voice of Arkansas Minority Advocacy Council, or our underwriters or sponsors.
Good morning, everyone out there. Happy Wednesday to you. You're tuned in to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM. I'm your host for today, Quabila Hardin, and my very special guest is Dr. Matthew Hill from Arkansas State University. Good morning, Doctor.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
All right, and he's going to be talking about, well, I want to say real estate. That's our general topic, real estate, but we're going to be talking about mortgages and when to buy, how to buy, things to look for. So I hope that you are ready for this topic. I hope that you are taking notes for those of you that are in the market for either buying or selling a home. So before we get started with that topic, though, I would love for Dr. Hill, to please give us some introduction.
Sure, absolutely. So I've been here at Arkansas State University for a little over 2 years.
Okay.
My wife and I moved to Jonesboro May 2015, and it's been a great couple of years. We're very excited to start another fall semester here at ASTATE. You can feel the energy on campus. We've got new leadership in place here at many different levels at the university, and we're excited about that. But I have been in academics since 2006.
Okay.
I actually have a background here at ASTATE. I was an undergrad student here from 1997 through 2001. I was a corporate finance major, in fact.
All right, our paths probably had crossed maybe for like a semester because I was in school. Oh my gosh, that's a long time ago.
It is. We were talking earlier about changes on campus and how Caraway Road used to run all the way through campus. I remember that vividly. I lived in Twin Towers for 4 years.
Oh my goodness.
Because my scholarship covered it. And so I have a long history here with ASTATE, and the university has been great to me professionally and personally. And so after leaving here, through some mentorship I received in the College of Business, it motivated me to get my PhD in corporate finance, and I did that at Mississippi State University from 2002 2006, and as a grad student I taught finance courses there as well. And after finishing, I took a couple of different jobs. I worked at the University of Arkansas Fort Smith for 2 years. I taught at University of Southern Mississippi for a year, and I taught at University of Mississippi, or Ole Miss, in Oxford for 6 years. And while I was there, I was the chair of real estate and finance, and so got to work a good deal with the local Mississippi real estate community, and also some of the broadcast networks, because it seemed like everyone was always interested in real estate because it's an asset market that impacts so many individuals. Not everyone wants to invest in stocks or bonds, and I understand that, but everyone's interested in real estate.
Real estate.
Yeah.
So what got you interested in this field and then to want to teach it?
Well, again, mentorship that I had, and at ASTATE is what motivated me to look into opportunities both as an academic, and trying to educate both undergraduate students, graduate students, and also industry professionals. Do a good bit of work with industry professionals that want some more background on some of these valuation tools and topics, because if you're a corporate practitioner and one of your jobs is trying to decide how much do we pay for this asset, right? And you make the wrong bid, you're going to get that asset if you're willing to overpay for it, and then you lose money for shareholders, for the bank or the company, whoever the case may be. And so those same principles help shape individual purchasing decisions too. How much do I know to pay for what? But in terms of my overall interest in finance, when I was a teenager, the stock market was in the beginnings of the tech bubble.
Okay.
And so it was on the news a lot, and to me it was sort of this thing that just sounded so cool and interesting that I could invest in stocks and make money. And so in high school, that's when I was asked to job shadow for classes and stuff, I thought, I want to job shadow the stockbroker from church.
Okay.
And so I got some nice mentorship there, and so that sort of sparked my interest in finance. And then when I came on campus here, I got to know some of the finance faculty and accounting faculty for that matter, and it just furthered my knowledge even more and really energized me towards finding my passion in finance.
All right, well, we're very happy to have you here to share your knowledge and expertise, and I hope that everyone that's either watching our live stream or listening on the radio are taking notes and can use the information that you provide. So let's get right into it.
Let's do it.
Even though I feel like I'm at the age where I don't want to get into a mortgage, there are some people who, even at 40 and 50, maybe 60, that's okay. I want to buy a house. I want to buy something, or just buy some property. So, I don't know where to really start. Let's talk about mortgages.
Sure. Well, I would open with this.
Okay.
Buying a house is one of the most important investment decisions that an individual can make.
Okay.
If you think about the average size of a mortgage balance or the average purchase price for a piece of real estate, that's going to be a huge component of an individual's balance sheet or net worth, right, in terms of their assets. And so it's not a decision to take lightly. We need to think very hard about this. And I know that mentoring friends and mentoring people from church on some of these decisions that are looking to buy houses, it's not something to be taken lightly, because once you buy the house and close and go through the mortgage process, it's yours. Wow. And if you decide that there are things about the house you don't like and what have you, then you have a couple options. You deal with it and just mentally say, I'm going to look past those flaws. 2, you fix those flaws either yourself or pay someone to do it. Or 3, you sell. And selling is not always an easy proposition, depending on the price tier that you're in.
Yes,
so it's a big decision, and it's not one that needs to be taken lightly. And unfortunately, even though it's such a large investment, individuals tend to want to jump in a little more easily than if they were making a much smaller purchase of stocks through, say, an online trading account. And so it's something that I'm glad that you're interested in that, because and the community is interested in that, I know. So further knowledge on that topic is important.
All right, so let's talk about some things that people need to consider when they're looking to buy a house. And we talked a little bit off air: location, income, credit. So let's talk about these things more in detail. About, you need to really take these things into consideration. First, what would you say would be the most important? Location, income.
Sure.
Location, income, credit score.
Yeah. Well, in terms of location, a lot of that depends on what the individual desires, because there's no hard and fast rule in terms of what fits everyone, right?
Okay.
Many of us wear different shoe sizes. There are a lot of different shoe sizes and shoe widths, right? So same things with housing. It's really in the eye of the beholder. So depending on the age of the individual that's looking to buy the house, they may have some needs that someone else may not. And so, for example, someone with several young children, they're going to be thinking more about school quality and proximity to school. Can my kids walk to school? If I'm driving them to school, how long is that going to take? Is it a school that I want them to be in terms of their programs and so forth? So luckily here in Jonesboro, we have a lot of great school options, so many good school options. So from one perspective, there's not going to be a whole lot of variance on that. In terms of other things that individuals might be looking for is size of the lot that they can be on.
Okay.
Do I want space or do I not want space?
Okay.
There's a trade-off there, right? There are all kinds of trade-offs with real estate.
Oh, wow.
If you want the big spacious yard, someone has to take care of that yard.
Yes,
and
sir.
It's either going to be you on the weekend or you're going to have to pay to have that done. And so these are just some things to consider. Proximity to work
Oh.
course, is very important too. So, in terms of location, those are some of the just basics that someone would want to think about.
And another thing we talked about off air, location as far as how long am I going to want to stay here? Am I going to want to further my career in another state, another city? So I guess personal time investment in the area as well.
Yeah, the academic real estate economists call that housing tenure. And one of the number one factors that determines whether you're able to build significant equity in a house is your tenure, your expected tenure, and how long will I live in that house. And we're forecasting the future here, so we're not going to predict it perfectly, but I believe the latest statistics on that is that most individuals will live in the house for 6 to 7 years. And depending on what price you pay and so forth, the break even on that is going to vary, but housing tenure is so important. And so there's a misnomer on renting, that there's a negative stigma about renting that I try to talk about it anytime I get a chance, and that is that renting is not necessarily a bad option. It's really not, because with renting, you are not anchored to a location to the same extent as if you buy the house. If you buy the house and you name the town, and then you decide that, I don't like working for my current employer, and then you look at your job skills and maybe you have a very unique set of job skills, then you may not find another job in that same town. But if you're living in a large metro area, maybe that isn't an issue for you. But in terms of renting versus buying, one thing we have to recognize is that when we buy a house and we go through this mortgage process, which I know you want to talk about more in a moment, but you go through that mortgage process and you find out very quickly that the true monthly payment that you're going to make is not just principal and interest on the note. There's property taxes, there may be private mortgage insurance, and maybe some other fees. So the bottom line on this is that all of that payment that you send to the bank each month, it's not all equity. That is, it's not all going to pay down the principal.
Oh my gosh.
And so when we think about renting, and if your rent is say $800 a month, yes, you get no equity out of that. But if you're buying a house and the sum of your after-tax interest, your private mortgage insurance, property taxes is more than that rental payment, then you're actually spending more to buy the house than you would from renting, and yet you lose the flexibility. Now, when you buy a house, though, you're also getting some personal utility out of that in terms of home ownership, and that's a real thing. It's hard to quantify, but there's something to be said about the mindset of, I own this house. This is my asset. I can paint it whatever color. I can remodel it. And so I don't want to knock that either, but I just hope that the community at large thinks a little more broadly about past the characterizations of renting's bad, I'm throwing all this money away, versus buying a house. Very rarely in life do we have just, truisms all the way throughout, that one thing's always worse than the other.
I know one thing, we saw, and like even with my own family, back in the early years, I'll say 20s, 30s, up to the 60s, 70s, home ownership was a really big thing. Back then, families were more fixed in a location. There wasn't, depending on what type of income base you lived under, there wasn't a lot of room for movement. So you picked a spot, you raised your family there, you have a family home there. And there was just more of a desire, I guess you say, to own a home, own this property, own this land. I think to some degree, some of the generations along the way have kind of, I'm just going to pick up and move wherever I want to go. I think the attitude has kind of changed to some degree.
I absolutely agree with that. And I think that's a good thing, that people are open to possibilities. And if you want to stay in that same location where your family is and all that, that's great too. But just understand what all the possibilities are. And to kind of piggyback on your point there is that for people that are maybe in their 60s or 70s now, buying a house was a great form of fixed savings, because by buying the house and you're making the monthly payment, a good piece of that will be principal, which gives you ownership in the house long term. So for individuals that maybe grew up decades ago that didn't have access to maybe retirement plans at work and weren't aware of ability to buy stocks through online trading accounts and so forth. Investing in your house was one of the few ways that you could keep up with inflation very easily for just mom and pops, maybe without a whole lot of finance knowledge.
Okay.
So there are benefits to home ownership too. But yeah, if you're looking to move around, if you're really young, looking to move around, I encourage students that I talk to on a day-to-day basis as they're about to graduate.
Okay.
Try to give them some words of financial wisdom. Two of those would be one is max out your retirement that your employer provides to you.
Okay.
Get that full benefit. Put in whatever it takes to get the match. Okay. And number two is rent until you're sure. Until you're sure that you want to be in that town working for that company. Those are the two issues that I always bring up with students.
Okay, so let's get into, we talked about, location of the home, whether you want to stay there, location to proximity to schools, work, church, or whatever you desire. Now let's talk about the income level. There are some people who feel, well, I fall into this bracket, and I'm studying sociology, and so I really hate labels, but unfortunately we have these labels, poverty, middle, upper, and then there's tiers in between all of that. Some people that feel they fall into the poverty line, and poverty doesn't just mean you're just destitute. It just means based on the national figures, this is where your income falls. Right. People who fall within those lower middle poverty level, they feel like, okay, I can't own anything. I don't have any options. But they want to try to buy a home. So what are their options for people who have low income?
Yeah, that's a tough question. The federal government has enacted some housing programs over the years to help spur home ownership.
Okay.
And during the financial crisis, some of those programs were mentioned as possible items to reform going forward.
Okay.
At this time, they've not been reformed, and so some of these subsidized housing programs have benefited a number of individuals to boost home ownership, because what we have to keep in mind is that the banks that make the loans, they're owned by shareholders, and they receive capital from both shareholders, stockholders, and also bondholders. And so the number one goal of the bank is to make money for their shareholders and be able to repay their debt, right? And so they have to make loans that have interest rates that go out to borrowers that match up with the risk of the borrower. Okay. And so one of the things that the federal government has tried to do is to step in and try to subsidize some of those interest rates. Okay. So that individuals with maybe weaker credit scores and lower incomes and shorter credit histories can still buy a house if they desire to. And so that way the bank still gets what they need out of the deal from the federal government, combined with the payment made by the individual with a lower income that's going through that program. Okay. Now, with that said, what can an individual look to do to try to improve their chances of buying a house? Improving the credit score is one of the key things, and paying bills on time, of course, and having a low overall debt load, very, very important. Okay. Number two is the income side, and that's the side that the financial institutions are they're going to monitor that very closely, because the key thing here is that the mortgage payment has to be covered by the income level, and so having a large enough income level and a stability of that income level being able to show that, hey, I've had this job for X number of years, not just X number of months, is a biggie. So those are some of the things. So stability of income is something that's ignored a lot. Okay.
Alrighty, so for those of you that may be looking, start making a plan. I'm all about getting a notepad, notebook, and making lists on top of lists and plans and options. And, this is not something to go into lightly, like you said earlier. That's right. You've got to think about all the ins and outs, A to Z, the risk involved, the, potential benefits involved. So it's a lot to think about, and it's not something. A lot of people try to do this on their own. I know I'm kind of going another direction here. There are so many apps that are available to help you find a mortgage or help you find a lender. What is your advice on that? Should someone stick to the tried and true, going to a bank, talking to someone face to face, or are these online options okay?
The online options are okay. They're not all scams. They really
Okay.
do. They really do work. There's Rocket Mortgage, among others. I've
Okay.
seen those ads. Personally, I've never used one. I like going into the bank
Okay.
and meeting my lender face to face.
Okay.
And I like that relationship. I have a great relationship with my lender, and I'm just old school in that regard. I
Okay.
like that in that way. If there are other needs that pop up, you start to build that relationship over time, and that can be very good, because when a bank has your mortgage, they really value that relationship.
Yes.
Because again, they're looking to make money. They're looking to make a profit and create value for their shareholders. So I think there's a lot of benefit to that. Plus, by starting that relationship with the lender, by getting pre-approved for a mortgage so that you can make a bid on a house,
Okay.
you might also get some additional information from that lender regarding that house in that neighborhood, especially if you're looking to move to a new area
Okay.
where you don't have a background.
All right, so we're going to get ready to take a quick break, but we do have a Facebook question, and we'll answer it when we come back from Karen Rogers McDaniel. Dr. Karen. How can people find their credit score? I have had a lot of people ask me, is there a free option? And we'll address that question when we come back from our break. So you're tuned in to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM, and we'll be right back after these announcements.
You're listening to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM. We'll be right back.
Do you need to put some life back into your marriage? I'm Mark Merrill with today's Family Minute. There are some things we need to survive physically: air, food, water. There are some things we need to survive emotionally in marriage. Things like love, trust, truth, and understanding. When a marriage is deprived of such things, it can slowly start to die. Here are 3 ways to revive a dying marriage. First, stop suffocating your marriage. Your words are powerful. The words you say out loud to your spouse and the words you say silently to yourself. When your words and thoughts are constantly negative, the oxygen will be sucked out of your relationship. So be careful to use words that breathe life into your spouse. For more ways to revive a dying marriage, check out my blog at markmerrill.com. Remember, your family first.
Family Minute is made possible by the Kappa Nu Omega chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, a nonprofit organization committed to service to all mankind. Kappa Nu Omega Alpha Kappa Alpha on Facebook and KNOMEGA1908.com.
KLK 102.5 FM is giving away $102.50 to one lucky listener. That's right, KLEK is giving back to you, our faithful listeners, as thanks for your support. Did I mention that we're giving away $102.50? I bet you're wondering, how can I win the money? Well, I'll tell you. It's quite easy, actually. Just come to our live broadcast Saturday, September 9th from 3 o'clock p.m. to 5 o'clock p.m. We'll be broadcasting live from Mrs. Polly's Motivational Barbecue CAB on the corner of Nettleton Avenue and Caraway Road in Jonesboro. We also want to thank Mrs. Polly's for sponsoring our giveaway. Their motto is, we do it for you. And we're doing it for you, Jonesboro. We're giving away $102.50 Saturday, September 9th. You want the money? Don't meet us there, beat us there.
KLEK thanks CJ Pepper and the staff of Life Strategies Counseling Incorporated for helping people through hard times in life, such as depression, family issues, stress, abuse, and more. They offer counseling and therapy for all ages, individuals, families, and groups. They are located at 1217 Stone Street. Phone number 1-866-972-1268 or online at lscihelp.com.
The McDaniel Law Firm, 400 South Main Street in Jonesboro, is a firm believer in justice and equality for the minority community. The McDaniel Law Firm has fought for our rights for over 44 years. The McDaniel Law Firm offers legal help for wrongful death as well as trucking and automobile accidents. Bobby and Brett McDaniel are available for a free consultation at 870-336-4747 or at www.mcdaniellawyers.com. Check out Melvin Williams of the Williams Brothers every Sunday morning from 5 to 7 a.m. here on KLEK for the Melvin Williams Down Home Gospel Radio Show, playing the very best in quartet and inspirational gospel music that you'll love, as well as feature interviews with all of your favorite gospel artists. It's Melvin Williams Down Home Gospel Radio Show, Sundays from 5 to 7 a.m. on KLEK 102.5 FM.
Did you know KLEK has a brand new streaming app? That's right, you can listen to KLEK 102.5 FM anywhere in the world. The app is available for all Android phones and tablets, as well as iPhones and iPads. Just search your app store for KLEK and download the KLEK app for free today. And don't miss a beat of the education, entertainment, and empowerment on KLEK 102.5 FM.
And now back to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM.
Welcome back to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM. We're back with Dr. Matthew Hill from Arkansas State University. He teaches in the finance department, the College of College of Business? College of Business, okay. And so we're discussing real estate, housing, concerning homes rather, mortgages. We're going to get more into interest rates and equity and some other topics that fall under real estate. But we wanted to address a question that was on our Facebook live stream. It says, how can people find their credit score? I have had a lot of people ask me, is there a free option?
Yes, and that's a great question. There are free options.
Okay.
Thankfully, they're online.
Okay.
I cannot recall the web address off the top of my head, but if you Google free credit score, you will find that very, very quickly. But you definitely want to check your credit score at least once a year.
Okay.
Even if you're not in the home shopping mindset, you still want to check your credit score because you can have some hidden charges on there and some things that you may not even know about. Just a personal story on that. I took out my first mortgage in spring of 2008.
Okay.
When I moved to Oxford, Mississippi, and I checked my credit score before I went to my lender because usually you can make a better offer on a house if you get pre-approved for the mortgage because it shows the seller of the house that you're more serious.
Okay.
So that's another tip that I would throw out there for anyone shopping. Get pre-approved.
Pre-approved.
Yeah, that way they can see that yes, you're very serious, and they're more likely to negotiate with you on price at that point. But long story short, I was happy with my credit score overall, but in addition to the number, you could see some items that the credit score vendors mention in terms of here's what you could do to improve your score.
Okay.
And one of mine was, I forgot what the title was exactly, but it was something like unpaid bills.
Oh.
And I dug into it, and usually the free credit scores that you can access online, usually they'll only give you the score, which is the number that most people are most interested in.
Yes.
To get the additional information, I believe you may have to pay a fee.
Okay.
It'll be maybe $100 or less.
Okay.
It can be helpful to get that information, not every year necessarily, but periodically.
Okay.
And I had an unpaid medical bill on mine, and in fact it was from a trip to the emergency room I took while I was an undergrad student here at Arkansas State. Yes, I was very sick late one night and went to the ER, and the line was so long that I wound up feeling better during my stay, and I left, and I checked in with the attendant, and they still filed it. And so this was so many years later that I was like, what do I do? So so it was a $40 charge. That was it. So I went ahead and just paid it, and just to get it off my credit report. So my point is, you never know what might be out there, and sometimes you can find fraudulent things. If you have a very common name, you may have been stuck with some things. So you want to check the credit scores.
Okay, so check the credit scores, and we'll definitely look into, what it may cost to get the full report.
Yeah.
There may be some options. Like I know at one point when I was trying to work on my credit, my landlord helped me. They had someone in place to work with the tenants, and so I actually was able to get a full report for free. Wonderful. Because I was going through this program. Yeah. So look for those options also. I would advise that. Look for options that offer programs to either, help you with finances or fix your credit, or that are legitimate. Yeah. And you might can get your full report for free and then start working on those smaller things and work your way up.
Yeah, unpaid bills will ding the credit report. Having what's called a high utilization ratio will also do that. And what that is if you have, say, credit cards where you have a maximum line on that credit card. If you're using 95% of that maximum line, then that will count against you, and so forth. And so, you can afford some things, on the credit card, on the credit line, or the credit score, excuse me. But all told, a lot of little things can add up. Okay. But large missed payments are the biggest downfall on this.
Okay, and maybe we have you come back and talk about how to repair your credit in more detail. Sure. Well, because that seems like a very big topic, that people are talking about nowadays, fixing my credit. So we'll definitely have to follow up with that. Okay, so I now want to get into interest rates. You're ready to buy a house, you found one, you maybe found a lender, or you're discussing some options. Let's talk about interest rates. What is too high? Mm-hmm. Do people with bad credit have to settle, for whatever they're offered? And then how do you know you're getting a good deal?
These are great questions. One thing we should probably start on with when it comes to interest rates is to recognize that an interest rate represents a price, a price that if we're a borrower, that we have to be willing to pay to access someone else's money. Oh gosh. I know, I feel you.
And those of us with student loans, we know all about this.
Yeah, so that's really the rub here, is that it's a price to pay. And so why are our credit scores so important? They're so important because they drive our interest rates that we pay. The higher or the better your credit score, the lower the interest rate. Okay. The lower the interest rate, the lower the overall payment on the house, the car, the student loan, you name it. And so yes, we're very interested in our interest rate, right? Because interest expense on a mortgage represents basically rent, right? If you think about renting a house versus buying a house. And so right now we're in a historically low interest rate environment. Really? Yes, they're super low overall. If you have strong credit, you can get a great rate right now. You could probably get a 30-year mortgage for 4.25%. Historically, yes, it's very, very cheap money. And if you want a 15-year mortgage, it'll be lower than that. The shorter the mortgage term, the lower the interest rate, because the lender has less risk. And if you think about the historical, say, evolution in interest rates, it's interesting to look at. Anyone with Google and a Wi-Fi connection can check this out. But I can remember as a boy as a kid in the 80s going to the bank with my dad, where they would put the interest rates up on a corkboard at the local bank in Dardanelle, Arkansas. And I remember some of the CD rates and savings interest rates being in the teens. Oh, wow. And so if the rates that banks were paying out on savings accounts were in the teens, then the interest rates that they were charging on mortgages were even higher, right? Because that's how banks make money. It's called the net interest margin. And so if you do a Google search on that, you'll find that mortgage interest rates in the 80s were in the teens, very, very high. And so that's one of the reasons why housing prices were so much lower then too. And now as rates have dropped dramatically, home affordability has naturally become better. And so that means we have more individuals out there shopping for houses. And so you've got a supply and demand imbalance to some degree, which drives up prices for housing. And so in terms of interest rates, they're really, really cheap. They've been cheap since 07 or 08
Okay.
because of the financial crisis. And so does that necessarily mean that we need to definitely jump into buying a house? Not necessarily, because it's still about what is the price being asked of that house that I want.
Okay.
We lose sight of that. It's sort of like buying a car. One of the best things you can do to save money is negotiate as hard as you can on buying that house or that car. But that's really up to the buyer and the seller to work that negotiation out.
Okay. I wanted to ask about, I had a thought, and oh goodness. Okay. When someone is looking into buying a home, some people want to go for it. They may have 2 children. They buy a 4-bedroom home or a huge house, more space than they need, really. What is your advice on that? Should people just stick to, if you only have X amount of children, don't buy a house that's double the size of what you need?
It's a good question. It's a personal decision. It's
Personal,
like car
okay.
choice. Yeah. Some people may decide that they want to spend more of their income on housing and less on cars, or more on vacations, whatever. So I'm sort of agnostic towards decisions like that, but overall, I would just encourage people to think very hard about what do we value in our house, in our family. What do we value the most? And set a priority list. And so if you're sort of a homebody, and that's my wife and I, we're primarily homebodies, and then you're going to be spending a lot of time in that house, then maybe you want to push more of your budget towards that.
Okay.
Or maybe housing just doesn't matter quite as much to you. You can overlook issues such as proximity to neighbors and size of the house, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Then maybe you want to spend more of your money on vacations. That's up to you too. But yeah, we do carefully need to be sure that we think about the size of the house, because home prices are proportional to square footage. The bigger the house, the more we're going to have to pay for that house. And houses have increased dramatically in size over the past 20 or 30 years. And you see that around even here in Jonesboro.
All right.
Yeah.
And to branch off a little bit from that, buying a fixer-upper versus a ready-to-move-in, or a house that has room to be expanded on in case of family growth, So what are some of your advice? What is some of your advice on that?
I can. that question is. I'm wondering if
you could ask this.
No. I'm wondering if you've spoken to my wife, because my wife and I have actually worked. We remodeled a house this summer.
Okay.
And we had a great subcontractor that we worked with on that. And my wife did most of the heavy lifting on that, by the way, I should mention. But I would just encourage people that if you think about doing the remodel thing, and these shows are popular, right? The do-it-yourself shows, and then the shows where HGTV shows where we have houses where we're adding on to and so forth. It can be a great idea. It can be fun. You get to put your own personal touches, but it's like many other things in life. If you estimate that it's going to cost X, it's probably going to wind up costing 2X, okay? Yeah. And so watch out for that. One of the benefits of buying a finished home is that it's done. It's taken care of, and that's it.
All right, we have another question on our Facebook page from Miss Teresa Jones. How about getting a loan on a fixer-upper?
The loan on the fixer-upper, sometimes what you can do is get just the outright. If you're looking to buy the fixer-upper, like you don't live in a fixer-upper, then you may need two different loans. Okay. An underlying mortgage to buy the structure. Wow. And then maybe some kind of credit line to help you with the remodel cost. Oh, wow. But banks, depending on what kind of remodel we're talking about, they may be a little skittish on providing that loan without you putting in some equity of your own or capital of your own. Maybe if you need, say, $30,000 to remodel, maybe they'll give you a $15,000 credit line if you're willing to put in $15,000 of your own to remodel. And I'm just throwing numbers out there, but that way you've got some skin in the game, and they may feel a little bit better about it. But if you buy a house that's a fixer-upper that's maybe really undervalued in terms of maybe it's a foreclosure, then the bank may see that, wow, long term, they're getting such a great deal on it that they may just make you outright a larger loan than you need to facilitate the transaction, which gives you more capital for remodel costs. If you can do any of the work yourself,
that's awesome.
That's the way to go. I'm all thumbs, so that's it would cost even more if I tried to do any of the actual remodel work. But if you have skills in that area, you can make that work for you.
Go for it. Okay, so let's get into, since you brought up capital and equity, let's get into I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, with equity, one of the things you want to think about is we hear that word thrown around a lot, equity. If we think about home equity, it's basically going to be the difference between the market value of the house and the loan amount. And so each month, when you make a payment to the bank, that payment is going to be stripped down into different pieces: principal, interest, property taxes, and insurance. The principal component of the payment, that's the part that actually goes to pay down the loan.
Okay.
So that's your equity that you get every month. The real danger with buying a house is that you're buying an asset, just like if you're buying a stock or a car, what have you. And the danger in that is that if you pay too much for the house on the front side, and 2 years later you want to see how much equity do I have in the house, then if the value of that house drops, then your equity can drop, even though you've been making all these payments. And so let's just go through a numerical example here. Suppose you buy a house here in Jonesboro for $150,000.
Okay.
And you put maybe $10,000 down.
Okay.
Okay. And so you get a loan for $140,000. 2 years later, you've made all your payments. You haven't paid any extra, but you've made your payments.
Okay.
Suppose that maybe you've got the loan amount down to say $135,000.
Okay.
Okay. If the house is worth $160,000 at that point, $160,000 minus $135,000 is $25,000.
Okay.
There's your equity. If that house drops in value to say $110,000, it's worth less than the loan amount. That is like buying a new car, right, and taking out a loan against it. It's underwater now.
Yes.
And so that really only matters to you if you're looking to sell the house.
Oh my God.
But if you're not looking to sell the house, you can sort of treat it like if your retirement account is lower due to the stock market going down. You don't need to tap the money, so you don't worry about it. But so that's one of the concerns. And so something that we would like to do in the College of Business, in the finance department in particular, is to start a local real estate price index on Northeast Arkansas housing, because we really don't know a lot about what prices, how they're evolving over time, and that information could be really good for the community, because oftentimes you only find out what your house is worth when you sell it. But if you want to know what the value of a share of Walmart is worth, or GE, you could pull out your iPhone and check it out and find out just like that.
Yes.
But housing stock is very, very different in that regard.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, concerning equity, I asked you this before. Okay, so we talked a little bit about how long it takes to accumulate. You're going to need to live in the house X amount of years before you actually start seeing some return on your investment. So what is the average maybe, or the preferred?
Yeah. Well, to answer that question, let's mention one other point. The best way to build equity is to start with equity, and that is to take out a smaller loan amount on the house, which means you bring a bigger down payment to the table, which I know is the hardest part with buying a house, right? Is that down payment. So we start with a larger down payment, which may mean that we defer buying the house for a while, because it's going to force us to save, right? Accumulate some capital. And we start with a larger down payment. That's number one. Number two is, and most fundamentally maybe, is to make your payments on time. Okay. And so each month, make the payment. When the bank sends you a little letter in December or January saying, don't worry about your house payment this month, we're going to let you slide. And so those gimmicks, you see it on credit cards sometimes too. All they're going to do is defer your payment for a month, and you'll wind up paying more interest expense over the long term.
Oh my God.
So it's not necessarily it's not a crooked thing by any stretch. It's up to the individual borrower to decide what to do, but make your payments when they're due. You can pay a little more every month.
Okay.
If you get a large tax refund back in April, maybe you take that money, put it down on the house, and that will allow you to build some equity as well. Another major question I'm often asked about is, should I take out a 15-year mortgage or a 30-year mortgage? The benefit of the 15-year mortgage is that the interest rate is going to be lower than on the 30-year. Okay. All right. And so what that means is each month you'll pay less interest expense. But since you have only 15 years to pay off the total loan, the mortgage payment itself is actually going to be much larger than it would be if you took out the 30-year.
Could imagine.
Right, because you have half the amount of time. So, but the benefit though is long term you pay much less in total interest expense with a 15-year. I'm sort of pragmatic though when it comes to mortgages, because houses have increased in price so much over the past 20 or 30 years.
Yes, sir.
I would recommend at today's interest rates, as long as they keep up at these levels, at these low levels, is that an individual take out the 30-year mortgage to get the lower payment. Okay. But then ask your lender, what would the 15-year mortgage payment be? Okay. And try to make the difference between those two payments every month.
And this is where your income comes into play,
yes.
Your priorities.
Absolutely.
Okay, do I want to take this trip to... Yes. Do I want to take this trip this year? Do I want to wait another couple of years? Do I want to put more into my home?
That's right.
There's so much to take into account.
Yeah.
And we're going to get ready to go to another break.
Sure.
So we're going to save some other questions for when we come back, because I want to quickly touch on interest rates. You know, we talked about it, but fixed versus adjustable.
Yes.
And then, your mortgage insurance and any other things that we haven't had a chance to talk on. Our next segment will be a little shorter, but we'll try to get some more information in. So I hope that you all are enjoying this. You're tuned in to Community Conversations. Stay tuned, and we'll be right back after these announcements.
You're listening to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM. We'll be right back.
We're back with Money Matters. I'm Alfred Edmond Jr. Home ownership is an important factor in the capacity to build wealth, but there will be times in your life when renting just makes more sense. However, without smart planning, you could wind up spending more than you could afford and hurting your credit. Here's what to do. No matter who the landlord is, get a rental agreement. This lays out both parties' rights and obligations and is an essential aspect in regulating potential problems. Read the contract carefully, including the fine print, and ask questions about anything that's not clear. If you're not comfortable with the terms and conditions, it's better to pass and look for another place than to sign and be legally bound to the contract. Inspect your home carefully on the day you get your key, and make a list of everything that's broken or damaged. Request that your landlord either repair the problems or sign off on the list. This way you can't be held responsible for these pre-existing damages when you move out. You should always have renter's insurance. I'm Alfred Edmond Jr. for Money Matters, a product of American Urban Radio Networks.
Money Matters is made possible by the Jonesboro Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, a nonprofit organization dedicated to uncompromising commitment to communities, service, leadership, empowerment. www.jonesboroalumnidst.org.
Money Matters is brought to you by Bancorp South, offering checking, savings, loans, credit cards, and wealth management. 5 locations in Jonesboro to serve you. www.bancorpsouth.com or 870-972-9800.
Post Consumer Brands is seeking to hire 5 operators at their Jonesboro facility. Post offers good starting pay, 3 weeks of paid vacation, comprehensive benefits, 401k with employee match, and frontline incentives, while working 4 days on and 4 days off. More information is available at jobs.postconsumerbrands.com. Post Consumer Brands is an equal opportunity employer.
Arkansas Early Learning is hiring for teachers, assistant teachers, program assistants, and assistant cooks. Positions are available for high school graduates and teachers with degrees. Positions are available in Jonesboro, Mark Tree, Truman, and Newport. Applications will be taken at the Geraldine Anderson Center, located at 1810 Latourette Drive in Jonesboro, on Thursday, August 24th, from 10 o'clock a.m. until 3 o'clock p.m.
Hello, I'm Officer Jonathan Higgins of the Jonesboro Police Department. One of the best decisions I ever made was to join the Jonesboro Police Department. Since joining, I've had the pleasure to give back, protect, and serve my community. Now I want to let you know about that same opportunity. The Jonesboro Police Department will conduct testing for the patrol officers at the Valley View High School. Applications are available online at jonesboropolice.com. The Jonesboro Police Department offers a competitive salary, health, and retirement benefits, top-of-the-line training, and most importantly, the chance to make a difference in the Jonesboro community. Join me in making Jonesboro a better place. The Jonesboro Police Department is an equal opportunity employer, and women and minorities are especially encouraged to apply. More information, 870-935-5657.
Applications are being accepted through September 7th, 2017. Applications are available at jonesboropolice.com.
And now back to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM.
All right, welcome back to our last segment on Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM. We have been speaking with Dr. Matthew Hill, and I'm totally enjoying this conversation. Even though I'm not ready to buy a house, I'm loving this information, and I hope that everyone out there listening and watching our live stream has been taking notes and have gotten something out of the conversation. Of course, you need to speak to someone one-on-one that, does this for a living to get more information based on your specific needs. I want to get into a few more things that we hadn't covered and anything else that we can squeeze into this last segment. We have talked about interest rates, where they are, numbers, what to look for, but let's talk about fixed rates versus adjustable rates. And then we also talked about when you're paying your mortgage, part of that money is going to other places, and one of those things is insurance on your home, because the banks don't want to lose in their investment either.
Right, that's right. One of the most important decisions beyond a 15-year mortgage versus a 30-year mortgage that an individual home buyer will face is, do I take out a fixed rate mortgage or an adjustable rate mortgage? Here's the basic concept. With a fixed rate mortgage, what you're agreeing to pay is that interest rate for the full 15 years or 30 years.
Okay.
So the benefit of that is that the rate's not going to change on you.
Okay.
So you know exactly what to expect as the borrower. That's nice. So basically you're shifting more of the risk onto the financial institution, because if rates increase, you're making the same payment to them.
Okay.
And the bank carries the risk. With an adjustable rate mortgage, what happens is that your interest rate can vary. And it will not vary month to month. Nothing crazy like that.
Okay.
But a lot of ARMs, that's what they're called, ARMs, adjustable rate mortgage.
Okay.
What they'll have is a 5-year initial period where it'll be fixed, so it won't change on you for 5 years. And then after that, it will change every year. And it's not that the bank is going to say, oh, I'm going to increase their rates and make more money off them. The adjustable rate mortgage will move with the ebb and flow of overall interest rates that are determined by the macroeconomy. And it's not just in the United States, It's not the Federal Reserve necessarily, it's the global market for money.
Oh my goodness.
And so you're sort of at the whims of whatever the way the winds blow there. Now, in today's market, as I mentioned earlier, with rates being at near historical lows, there's probably not much chance for rates dropping any lower than they are currently.
Okay.
Which means that the potential benefit to the borrower of the adjustable rate mortgage isn't really there, right?
Okay.
Because there are times where an adjustable rate mortgage could have been good for you. If you took out a mortgage maybe in 05 or 06,
okay,
and it was adjustable rate, even with really good credit, you may have paid 7-8%. If it reset in 09, your rate would have dropped like a rock.
Wow.
So it's not that they're always bad for people. In this current market, I don't see a lot of upside for them.
Okay.
If you need a quick mortgage, though, from a bank, if you need a quick close on a house, oftentimes the lender, one of the loan types that they can quickly close you on, though, is an adjustable rate mortgage. So that is a reason why some people still take those out. In fact, I have one of those right now.
Okay.
So, but you can always refinance it into a fixed rate mortgage if you want. In terms of the payments, the payment that you make to the bank, the overall mortgage payment. Again, here are your two key components that most people focus on: principal and interest.
Okay.
They think of that as the overall payment for the house, much like a car payment. If you take out a car loan, you have principal and interest. But a mortgage on a house is much more complex than that, because most banks are going to, in addition to principal and interest, they're going to want your property taxes paid each month in something called an escrow account, but they want to collect that from you all at the same time each month, so they're not worried about whether property taxes are paid or not. Those property taxes are usually set by the local city or county. It'll be a percentage of the assessed value of the house, and that's kind of a hot topic right now in Jonesboro because assessed values did go up recently. But we do have to keep in mind no one likes to pay taxes, but that money is used for things such as to keep our roads taken care of. We all want a great fire department and police department, our schools. We want great parks. We want it all, right? But somebody has to pay for that. So there's your property taxes. And then there's insurance. And with insurance, you may have two types. Private mortgage insurance, or PMI, is something that individuals will have to pay when they have a lower down payment and a larger loan balance.
Okay.
And that insures the bank against your default. If you don't pay the mortgage and the house is worth less than what you owe, that insurance helps cover the gap. The other main source of insurance that all of us have to pay is property.
Okay.
For property damage and so forth.
Oh, wow.
And so it all adds up. And so I hope that the information here has been helpful, because one of the things that we're looking to do in the finance profession overall, on the academic side, and here at ASTATE and the College of Business, is we call it the democratization of information and democratization of finance.
Okay.
We need to get that information out to all individuals, because the world is becoming increasingly complex.
Yes, it is.
We have to make investment decisions on our own, and buying a house is one of those. Our retirement savings is another that you and I have talked about during the breaks. And just the knowledge about finance, it's whether we're going to be in business, working in business field or not, it's still going to impact our lives.
Wow, there's so many things to take into consideration when you're getting ready to, when you're even just thinking about buying a home. So I hope that, those of you out there that are listening or watching, if you're considering buying a home, or if you're already in a home, I hope you're kind of resetting your priority list, making long-term goals and checking that list twice and again, and keeping up with your credit score and things of that nature. There's so much that goes into this. Yes. Besides, I like that house, I want to buy it. There's so much more that goes into that. Goes into purchasing a home. Sorry. I can't thank you enough for joining us, Dr. Hill, and we will definitely have you back, because another hot topic is repairing credit and then making investments for the long term. There are people who they try to set their life up. Now people are not wanting to retire at 65 and 70. They want to retire at 40 and 50 and really enjoy their life, and do what they want to do versus what they have to do. So definitely want to have you talk about what can people do now, and what is the, adequate, I hate to say adequate, age to really start setting your life up, so that when you get to 40 and 50, you're not looking back like, I'm almost out of time. I don't have time to, we don't want to run out of time. We don't know if tomorrow is promised. So we want to start setting our life up as early as possible. I don't know. I'm sorry.
No, I'm with you.
So we're definitely going to have you back. We'd love, to hear from your students as well. If there's any students that work in, the department that are going to follow a career path long term, we would love to hear from them what they plan to do.
We have some great students.
Alrighty, so would you like to give any shout outs to anyone on campus or at home, or?
I would just like to say hello to my wife that is probably listening right now.
Okay.
And she is a marketing professor on campus in the College of Business as well, and I just hope that she's having a great morning.
All right. Well, thank you so very much. And we look forward to having you back again, Dr. Hill. And thank you to everyone out there who listened in and watched our live stream. And I hope that we have helped answer your questions and you can find the answers you need. Have a very blessed day.
Thank you for listening to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM, a program focusing on the people working to make the Jonesboro community a better place while offering viewpoints from all sides of the issue.